All right, y'all. Welcome to another show, A Real Talk with Tula Cabone. And you know what I always say, if you hear the sound of my voice, God has blessed us here another day. Prayers go, blessings come down. Bear with me. I got a little cold. And today, for a guest co-host, I got Pastor Frank Jackson. Very powerful brother, extraordinary. And you know, on my platform, I don't just let anybody sit in the box. So I want to say this brother is extraordinary. I often talk to him. He's an amazing individual, somebody I have come to gain a lot of respect for. So as soon as I get finished with my announcement, I'm going to let him speak to y'all. All right, you know, I always say that Habar Ghani, and the response is in Zuri. Habar Ghani means what's the news. Giving shouts out to Brother Henry Tyler and Brother R.J. Watkins for being the brainchild for this show and been 2015 Hall of Famers, R&B Hall of Famers. And we give shouts out to Miss Michelle and Miss Maxine also for participating in this family. 88.1 FM WHPR and 107.5 WGPR and 107.5 FM WGPR HD3. Thank everybody that's a part of the family. Now let's bring in Brother Frank Jackson. Let him introduce himself, and we got popcorn today, y'all.
Pastor Frank Jackson IV, Pastor United Christian Church of Detroit. Just glad to be here with my powerful brother who's not only multi-talented and extremely representative of the people and making sure that the truth is out. We're just excited to be here to take part in the show and to make sure we break the greater knowledge with each other to make sure that our city and those and our people are not only well informed but also kept informed.
Right,
so they might be able to not only improve their quality of their lives but also improve the lives around them. I think that's most important.
Facts.
That we be about improving the lives of those around us, including ourselves.
Facts. Okay. All right, y'all. We're going to have popcorn today. Mr. Tyler, the first video I think is going to be about Christmas. The origin. Yeah. All right, y'all. We finna set it off today. So everybody get ready because some people might be upset because we telling y'all the truth. And we're going to discuss it. So we're going to the first video.
We've all heard the biblical origins of Christmas, but societies have been celebrating light and birth in the darkest days of winter centuries before Jesus walked the earth. In the Norse country, this winter celebration was known as Yule. Around December 21st, the winter solstice, fathers and sons dragged evergreens indoors as reminders of life and set logs on fire as a promise of good fortune. Ancient Rome had its own December festivals. 1 week before the winter solstice, Romans began celebrating Saturnalia, an orgy of food and drink in honor of Saturn, the god of agriculture. Some Romans, particularly soldiers and government officials, also worshipped Mithra, the sun god. It is believed that to this small but powerful sect, the birthday of Mithra, December 25th, was the holiest day of the year. By the 1st century AD, pagan traditions were being challenged as Christianity took hold throughout the empire. But Christ's birth date remained a mystery, since the Bible doesn't mention exactly when he was born. Since pagan Rome already celebrated the birth of Mithra on December 25th, it is theorized the church adopted the date as the birth of the Christ child. In the 4th century, the church made it official, declaring December 25th as the feast day of the Nativity. The church knew it could not outlaw the pagan traditions of Christmas, so it came to accept them. The evergreens traditionally brought indoors were decorated with apples, symbolizing the Garden of Eden. These apples would eventually become Christmas ornaments. The story of Santa Claus also begins in the 4th century with the death of Nicholas, a beloved Turkish bishop. The anniversary of his death became known as St. Nicholas Day. On December 6th, good children woke to gifts from the kindly saint. Bad children sulked away with nothing. In Holland, he was known as Sinterklaas. 1,500 years later in America, a seminary professor named Clement Clark Moore reimagined the legend of St. Nicholas. In 1822, Moore wrote a poem called The Night Before Christmas about a good-natured saint named Santa Claus, who was pulled by a group of reindeer and came down the chimney on Christmas Eve. Like St. Nicholas, Santa Claus spread good cheer and gave gifts to children. Less clear was exactly what this Santa Claus looked like. Then in 1863, Thomas Nast, a cartoonist for Harper's Weekly, settled the matter once and for all with his version of the Christmas Saint. Nast's Santa was rotund and jolly, with a full white beard and a sack full of toys. An American icon was born.
So I had to show that video first because a lot of us don't know the origin of Christmas. We just told something and we believe it, right? And now we know that the Santa Claus was created in 1822, and before that, the holiday started on what they call a solstice, right? And they just gave Jesus a birthday. Now, why is this important to me? I can recall growing up as a child, and you know, when you tell a child that you give them the myth that they're not going to get gifts based on how good they are, or if a child think they're bad and Santa Claus is going to bring them all this stuff and that doesn't happen, that's a problem. You know, that's a problem. And we have to learn, we have to understand that. And I can remember that, man. I can remember believing that Santa Claus was really flying over and all that. And then when Christmas came, I never got anything I deserved. I also believe that December the 25th was Jesus' birthday. And come to find out, the history of his birthday was started out in Rome, out from a pagan holiday. And they just gave Jesus December the 25th because there's nothing definitive that anyone ever found can tell you that Jesus was born December 25th. So I'm going to turn it over to Pastor Frank. Let me hear his comments.
Well, first of all, Christmas didn't just drop out of the sky fully decorated with Denzel and Mariah Carey. It was developed theologically, culturally, and strategically.
Centuries. And I think you brought to the table a clear and honest backstory to Christmas. Now, am I as a pastor saying, oh, we shouldn't celebrate? I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is
Fact.
we need to understand the history and the origin of it.
Right.
And what you presented, I find no fault in.
Right.
Even up until Santa Claus, who was called Santa Claus, actually taken from the Netherlands. He was a Netherlands person. So I think this is it was based on a 4th century bishop famous for his generosity to the poor.
Correct.
So you fast forward through Europe, the Netherlands, Santa Claus, and American culture, and you get this red suited capitalist holiday that we basically tolerate for kids.
Facts.
And that's basically where it stands at today. So again, I find no fault in what you said. This is exactly what it is, and I think this is the reason why I say I'm proud to be a guest on this show, because you're providing information for our people so we can teach them the truth and not this commercialized, some man coming down the chimney. Most of us in Detroit don't even have chimneys, or don't have fireplaces, and look for gifts when your parents work hard. Right. And you're going to give credit to some dude coming down the chimney. You work hard. I tell my kids, your Santa Claus is a 300-pound black man that's about 5'6".
Right. And you know what? At the end of the day, I hear some people say, well, you shouldn't ruin it for children. You should let them believe in that fictitious thing. And I totally disagree with that. And the reason I say that, because the financial burden is put on the parents. And I'm going to tell you something, man. Growing up, my mom had 5 children, and she did the best she could do. And at the end of it, we didn't have great Christmases. But at that point, I understood that Santa Claus wasn't real because you didn't get what you wanted. And what that could do to a child, man, that's being misguided, that can make them think really that they're being bad, Pastor Frank, when really the whole concept is a made-up idea, even down to the birthday of Jesus. But like you said, I'm not going to tell people, not to celebrate Christmas, but just know the smoke and mirrors of it, right? So embrace it more so as a celebration. Now, if you want to celebrate Christ that particular day, which I think we should do every day, honestly, we can do that. But to just say Jesus was born December 25th, I remember somebody told me that one time, Pastor, what I told him? I said, okay, show me where it's at. I mean, for real, right? This is what I said. I said, well, show me where it's at. And Pastor, don't you know they couldn't show it to me?
Well, most people can't. And here's what we do know. And what we do know is that Christ was born more than likely in the summertime and not the wintertime. Basically because of what the solstice and when the star was up. So we have a good idea about he was born. That's number one. Number two, I'm going to speak to what you said about giving them a false narrative. When, as parents, and I have 4 children and 3 godchildren that I'm very active in, lives that I'm active in. But when you have children, your children should know and understand the value of hard work. Your mother raised 5 children. She was a single parent mom, and she worked hard to provide. And why should someone else get credit for what she did, what she worked hard to do?
So let me say that my dad was in the house, but he became handicapped afterwards.
Okay.
But so I come in a 2-parent home, but at the same time, even in a 2-parent home in the South, it's hard.
Still hard.
You know what I'm saying? Because down south there's no finances.
Right.
So I mean, it's just the whole concept. And I think at some point, Pastor Frank, we need to come to grips with the reality that we can't just embrace these type of ideas, particularly for our community. Say somebody calling them instead. We can't. All right, we're gonna take the call, Pastor Frank. Go ahead, caller. Go ahead.
Hey, Tula, and hi to your guest.
All right, Pastor Frank.
I'm going to tell you, excuse me, a story. So, I believed in Santa Claus way longer than I should have. And I should have known because I would ask for specific things and specific colors, but it would come however it came, okay? I just remember one day being on my bike with my friends, and we're just sitting there. And I think we're about maybe 11 or so. And, I'm talking about with Santa this and they looking at me laughing like, Santa what?
Right.
Right. And they look really, what? And I'm like, yeah. And such and such a blah, 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 blah. So then I'll never forget. So I bike back home, and I can't because I was crying. I came back to the house, and my mama was like, well, yeah, this, that, and third. So, I mean, I was crushed. Now, I'm going to go to another story. So I remember when I lived in an apartment, right? And my youngest son, I swear, oh, my God, he asked me more questions than anything when it came to, he was like, well, how's he going to get in the house? We don't have a chimney.
Right.
We don't have a fireplace. How's he going to get in the house? I was like, oh, he's going to come through the sliding glass doors, because you have that, the sliding glass doors. And he's like, I don't see how, because they're going to be locked. I tell you, I swear to God, this boy, and that was when, and then he came home, he was like, Mom, he was like, there's no such thing as Santa Claus. And I was, what are you talking about? Well, the kids at school told me this, that, and third. I said, well, tell them Santa come to your house. And it was just funny, though, because it is. Yeah.
So you
it is.
So you basically tried to continue the false narrative. And do you think that you was trying to vicariously live through him, through your childhood, trying to just keep it going when you know it wasn't true?
Yeah, I was trying to keep it going because that's how I was raised.
Right.
But I was just trying to keep it going. But you got to understand something too. Nowadays, these kids, their parents, a lot, especially in the black community, because 9 times out of 10, we ain't got no money. I was in Toys R Us, and there was this mother, right, and she had to have about 5 kids. And y'all go ahead and y'all pick out whatever it is you want. Pick out whatever it is you want. And I'm looking like, and I'm trying to shield my son, but nah. And all of this, and I get it. We want to be festive and we want to do this, that, and the third, and I get it. But if you ain't got no money to be putting no toys up under the tree, if anything, you need to be putting books up under the tree, especially now more than ever. You need to be I don't care if you got to print them up offline, you need to be putting books up under the tree.
I think.
Forget a doll.
I think you could do both, though, Redbone. I think you could do both. But at the same time, you have to be realistic with your children. And you have to have a big talk with them. I remember one Christmas, my mom only gave us a clock radio. And I tell people that, outside of all the other gifts her and my dad used to give us. And don't you know, my mom said, I'm sorry. You know what I told her? I said, this is the best gift anybody ever gave me. because my mama gave it from the heart. And I
Right.
think that when we explain that to children, that you give it to them out of love, not so much you can't afford it. And you might have, my mama sacrificed it for us. She used to go rent stuff from Rent-A-Center, and we'd get it for Christmas. She would pay on it. But the moral of the story is we have to give children enough credit to be honest with them and know them that love come in different ways.
Right.
And I think once we do that, we kind of get them, we kind of make them understand that mom or dad or whomever love you for real. Go ahead, Pastor.
Brother Tula, I didn't grow up in the same situation you grew up in. I had two-parent household as well, but both my parents had very good jobs. But my mother and father made it very clear to me, and I don't think my parents meant any harm when they said this. I know they didn't mean any harm, but if they said to me, Santa Claus is not a fat white guy that's coming by the house tonight. Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus sleep upstairs, and you see them every year. You see them year round, and those are the ones who his little elves are the ones when they go to work. Is what they get in their paycheck, which is going to provide you with what you have. Now, does that take away from me Christmas? It did not. Because it was a time for family gathering, family together, and parents. We exchanged gifts and things of that nature. But what I learned as I became a parent and as I got older, and I think this is to what you're saying, Brother Tula, and also to the caller, is that I think we've commercialized it to the point where this is really a retail holiday.
That's it.
That part.
And
He's exactly right. That part.
I'm a bivocational pastor. I'm not one of these pastors out here that only works at the church. I work for an airlines, and and at that airlines, this is the big travel time for us. We make majority of our money between November and January, and then again for spring break, and we have these seasons that we travel with, and that people travel. So this is a retail holiday. This is a spending holiday. There's a reason why AAA tracks the number of flights that people are purchasing.
Right.
The reason why the gas prices and where gas prices are higher and lower is because it's a retail holiday. This is how the consumer index is tracked as well, by how much people spend during these holiday time periods.
Facts. And that's so true, and that's what I mean, man. We, I sometimes, like I said, what the pastor was saying, is that you just got to be real. Period. His parents are like, nah, Santa Claus, and it don't take away. And I think sometimes we have to reinvent the holiday.
But at this point in time, I grew up in a two-parent household too. And we probably are all around the same age, so things were a little different. But you got to understand now, these children, okay? Now, my oldest, he's 22. My youngest, he's 22. So at that point in his life, these kids, they knew that he went to a multicultural school, but he would come and ask questions. And I'm like, my God, come on now, really?
Right.
I'm trying to do Christmas. I'm trying my hardest, but it was like, it wasn't like when we were coming up there. I believed in Santa Claus forever.
But Redbone,
Redbone,
you got to understand too. We didn't have internet. We didn't have phones.
There it is.
You know what I'm saying?
And I'll do anything to go back, Tula.
But I'm just saying. So we couldn't look this stuff up. A lot of these children, right? But these children are looking this stuff up now. So when you tell us something, it's Santa Claus. So we have to. But Redbone, we're going to have to move on because I'm going to get to the next video.
I'm sorry.
No.
And hi to your guests. It's nice to hear you. Okay, you guys.
Yeah. Thank you
have
so
a
much.
blessed holiday.
You too. And good to hear
Happy
from
holidays
you.
to
You're
you.
welcome to call back. Let's go to the one with the Black Jesus, Pastor Frank. Mr. Tyler. I'm calling. Boy, I'm so messed up.
Hollywood?
That's it. Y'all, this is fire right here. This is fire. Somebody might be upset, and it ain't us.
The true story of the Israelites is the true story of the people of color. People with black skin see them. were all black, the lineages of the one called Jesus, all the way down to his very self, black. This is the one called Jesus, black. This was him in a debate with the scribes concerning affairs of the scriptures. This was the Virgin Mother Mary and the Blessed Child. There are several versions of these original icons, all black. Now this was Jesus while in his youth. Tell me, just what do you see? They were all black, all the saints. Until the Renaissance. And how did the world come about these icons? Thanks to the Russian secret vault, which was opened only years ago by the president of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin. This laid to rest all the doubts about the identity of blacks, which has brought about so much fuss for a very long time. Regardless, has Hollywood always known that the one called Jesus was black? Has the fervent portrayal of Jesus as white in the movies been unintentional all along? Or has it been just another one of those white supremacist games to continually humiliate the black confidence and subject them to perpetual denial and retardation? We shall be finding out all that in this video. Don't forget to support our steadfastness by hitting the thumb button. Share with as many as you can to keep spreading our eye-opening contents, and consider subscribing to stay tuned in with us if you are yet to. Now let us proceed. For centuries past, Hollywood has often perpetuated a distorted image of Jesus Christ, depicting him as a fair-skinned, blue-eyed Caucasian. However, this portrayal contradicts the historical and biblical evidence suggesting that Jesus was a black African.
The thief cometh not but for to steal, and to kill, and to destroy. But I am come that they might have life, and that they might have it more abundantly. St. John 10, verse 10. Are there any questions?
Watch it, baby. This cat is heavy on religion.
I can see this has become a struggle between good and evil. Satan has a question.
Yes, sir, Chaplain Gill, but since neither one of us are God, I don't think either one of us are in any position to say who's good and who's evil.
Why don't you just ask your question?
We were discussing the disciples. What color were they?
Well, I don't think we know that for certain.
But they were Hebrews, were they not?
That's right.
As was Jesus. Jesus was also a Hebrew.
Why don't you just ask your question?
What color were the original Hebrews?
I have told you that we don't know that for certain.
Then you can't believe for certain that Jesus was white.
Just a moment. God is white. Isn't it obvious?
Well, that is obvious, but we don't know if it's obvious that God is white. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that Jesus did not have blonde hair and blue eyes. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that the images of Jesus that are on prison walls and churches throughout the world are not historically correct, because history teaches us that Jesus was born in a region where the people had color. There's proof in the very Bible that you ask us to read in Revelation 1st chapter, verse 14 and 15, that Jesus had hair like wool and feet the color of breast.
Just what are you saying?
I'm not saying anything. I'm proving to you that Jesus was not, and I might quote one of our Indian brothers, he was not a pale face.
Aha.
Amen.
Isn't that interesting?
The portrayal of Jesus as a white man has its roots in ancient times, but gained momentum during the Renaissance period, 14th to 17th centuries, when European artists like Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo solidified Jesus' white image, which was further entrenched through colonialism and imperialism. This whitewashing gained momentum in Hollywood's golden age, which was from the late 1920s to 1960s, when studios consistently cast white actors as Jesus, ignoring historical accuracy. Movies like Ben-Hur and The Greatest Story Ever Told cemented the white Jesus narrative, which continued with movies like The Passion of the Christ and The Da Vinci Code, and TV shows like Jesus of Nazareth and The Bible. Hollywood's whitewashing of Jesus erased his Middle Eastern and African roots, reinforcing Western cultural superiority and perpetuating harmful stereotypes and racism. The whitewashing of Jesus, depicted as a black man in biblical times, stems from complex historical, cultural, and ideological factors. During the Roman Empire, Jesus' Jewish heritage and Middle Eastern features were not distinct from those of Africans. The scripture describes Jesus as having hair like wool and feet like burnished brass. Looking at some of those among his lineage suggests that it is very unlikely for Jesus to have white European features. Hollywood, known to convey messages of hidden truths by the riddle of its movies for as long as we can tell, knew about this far long enough before most. Let's have a look at this old TV show for a minute.
Mama, it's just a symbol of Jesus.
Well, hello, symbol, and goodbye.
JJ painted him.
The whole thing on me, Michael. I had him in the closet where he wasn't performing no miracles for nobody.
Mama, couldn't we at least let Black Jesus hang alongside?
Forget it. The only Jesus I know is him, and the one thing he don't need is a partner. This picture has been in my family for as long as I can remember. When I was a baby, I don't know what I saw first. My mama, my papa, or this Jesus. Now, he's the one I know and love, so let's close the subject. Jesus was black, the Bible would have said so.
But it does say so.
What are you talking about?
I read about it, it's in Revelations chapter 1, verse 14. I read about it in Muhammad Speaks. It says, his hair is like wool, and his eyes are like flame of fire.
Oh, Lord have mercy. It sure do say that, don't it?
And see, Mama, look at that hair, like wool, ain't it? And look at them eyes, red like fire.
Yeah, they sure is. Judy, how come you decided to paint this? I don't know. All of a sudden, I just had divine thoughts on my mind.
Mama, how do we know Jesus wasn't black? He could have been from the lost tribe of Israel. They were supposed to be black.
I bet they were. If ever people were lost, we're it.
This TV show, titled Good Times, Black Jesus, has been around for as far back as the year 1971, and it was all about
Listen, that video was fire. And so I played that video because I'm tired of people trying to disconnect black people from spiritual greatness. Let me say it that way. I can recall, and I was telling Pastor Frankie yesterday, when I was growing up, and I remember I see Jesus was white, the angels was white, and it put a thought in my head that black people must be bad because everything good or pure or righteousness was white. Excuse me. At that time, unbeknown to me, that I was unaware that Jesus was not a white man, and that Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo painted the first two pictures of Jesus. And it was later on in the 1940s that a guy named Selman painted the other picture. So when you use spiritual manipulation to black people, and I'm saying this particularly to black people, because we are a very spiritual people, period. And when you use that imagery to try to make us feel as if we don't have a significant purpose in life, spiritually, that's a problem. And I recall doing slavery, where the slave owner would tell black people that God say, obey your master. Well, if you think Jesus white, the angels white, you're going to think your master's white. So go ahead, Pastor Frank, give me some input.
Man, you know, this right here goes deep to me, not only with my family, but this theologically speaking. So first of all, it is dishonest for anyone to teach that Jesus was a white man, was blonde hair and blue eyes. Even if you don't look at the Revelation text, we know that Jesus came down through David's journey, through 42 generations from the line of David's lineage. And in the first chapter of the Songs of Solomon, Solomon says in chapter 1, verse 5, I am dark, and some translations very dark and lovely.
Right.
So if Solomon is in the lineage of Jesus, that's number one. Number two, if you remember, Jesus, when he first was born, he had to hide because he was out to get him.
Right.
His family hid in Egypt. How do you hide in Egypt if you're a blonde-haired, blue-eyed person?
Good point.
How do you hide in Egypt?
Good point.
And even with Alexander the Great whitewashing Egypt, meaning, you know, with the forced, you know, birthing and things of that nature, the Egyptians are still dark to this day.
Right.
Thirdly, and lastly, Jesus was Palestinian, which goes into like, why are we into this whole destroy Palestine, this, that, and the other? Jesus was Palestinian. He was a Palestinian Jew. Which means he was from that region of Palestine, which was not European.
Right, fact.
So how in the world can he be European or have even European features when the region he was born in, the region he grew up in, the region in which he was able to hide until his family was able to come back, was not people who are of European descent?
Facts.
It is virtually impossible. So it is not only theological dishonest, not only is it historically dishonest, but it is common sense dishonest to imply or to say. Now, if that's Michelangelo's vision of Jesus, then let that be Michelangelo. But don't teach that as historical truth or facts when there's nowhere near the truth or facts.
And the sad part about it is that really, Pastor Frank, a lot of people ain't putting it out there like that. You know, I remember going down south to a funeral in 2022, and they had a white Jesus on the passing wall. I said, what? Because that's the stuff we grew up with down there. But I think it's important and it's imperative that because Jesus is so much an intricate part of black religion, let's be clear about that. You know, we'll say in the name of Jesus in a minute while we praying. So we have to get the accuracy, to me, of his skin color and know what we praying to, and to know that we came through spiritual greatness. Mm-hmm. That Jesus was a black man who was spiritually great. And when you look at it, man, and I look at, when I be looking at a lot of these statues, like I see the nativity scenes, right, with Mary and Joseph, and I see the white Jesus, the white parents. I'm like, man, we've been bamboozled.
Hoodwinked.
Run amok. Spiritually we have. And I think that it comes a time where we have to be willing to really step out on a limb and use these type of platforms to truly educate our people, or educate in general. You know what I'm saying? Educate in general. Go ahead, good brother.
Something else the video said in there that's kind of disturbing. In Good Times, he said that this is the only Jesus he ever knew. But in the video with Malcolm X, from the movie Malcolm X, you know, why is it that we portray this white Jesus so hardcore? Why do we go so hard for this? Right. You have to think about where we are. We're in YT America, where historically speaking, they have suppressed the creativity, the development, and the education of people of color for centuries. This isn't brand new. This administration that's trying to whitewash and try to trying to, get rid of our history. This has been, if you want someone to stay in their place and to keep them subjective to you or subordinate to you, you have to make everything about them bad.
Facts.
Think about the experiment that happened with the little girl. They said put a white doll and a black doll in front of her.
Absolutely.
And she said, what doll do you like? She said, the white doll.
Yep,
they said, what doll do you look like? She started crying. Because if you want people to feel like they're less than, you have to make yourself greater than.
Facts.
And so when you start whitewashing history and white this and white that and white this and white that and everything white is right and everything black is wrong, look at our TV shows. The good guy always wore what? White. Black guy, bad guy always wore what? Black. So you're making it seem like everything dark, everything black is negative. So why would you have Jesus, the Son of God, as a black man when you just portraying everything is white is right and everything black is wrong? So this goes to the systematic racism that is taken. This is on the level of the Willie Lynch letters.
Facts.
And so that is the reason why. But we know not only just by reading the Bible itself, but also just simple geography that he could not have been white.
But you know what? Now you just hit the hammer on the head on something. I want to elaborate on that. So I read something one time. They said that based on a false narrative, they were trying to paint of black people. The slave owners and those who enslaved black people could never paint us with a sense of humanity. Because if they did that, then people would start at questioning, why are you having these people enslaved if you see a sense of humanity? And it goes back to what you just said. You know, they had to paint us that way in order for us to feel and for them to be able to legitimize the mistreatment of us as a people.
Exactly. If you humanize us and you see people see you treating us inhumane, then it becomes a problem. So when you treat person like property, right? And they are your property, you play claim to them. And they have no humanity. That's why you're able to treat them the way you did. But if you saw them as human and treated them as human, then you couldn't do so. And so this is the systematic way that this country has done things to people of color, and not just black people. They tried it with Native Americans, but they knew how to run away. They knew where to run. They had systems and networks to hide each other.
Right.
They tried to do but before they did it to black people, they tried to do it to their own people.
Right.
But they couldn't inhumane them.
Right.
They could not belittle them to the point, but they still did.
Right.
You know, just look at our own city of Detroit. Who worked in the foundries at Ford? Blacks and Polish.
Right.
Blacks and Polish.
Right.
People who they thought were less than human. Had the worst jobs in the factory and made the least amount of money. Right. You're able to dehumanize people. And that's what they did with this Jesus. They're trying to make white right and black wrong.
White right and black get back.
Exactly.
All number is 313-365-7379. Well, let's go to the next video, y'all. This video is fire as well. Pastor, we're going to talk about this. This is deep.
Historically, who gets that job?
I have no idea.
Oh, stop!
Historically, who?
Stop!
Come on,
No idea.
historically.
Okay, let's say historically white men. Who gets it today? Who gets it today?
If you look at
who gets it today?
That discrimination on the basis of race or sex is bad. Can we all say yes?
Yeah,
Carrie, can you say yes to that?
But
you don't. Well, the reason I asked that question.
But I mean, because there's an entire community that feels discriminated against by the president.
White men.
The Somali community feels discriminated against by the president. He
American,
called them garbage.
Joe Biden called us garbage. White American men are being discriminated on the basis of their race and gender. And I would have to stop pretending like that is the, if, blacks have a slightly higher unemployment rate or, slightly lower, that's okay.
Well, it's double. It's not slight.
My point is, it doesn't matter what it is.
Let's proceed.
And I won't answer your question.
She never said that.
And she never said
She wouldn't answer the question.
She never said that.
The
reality is this conversation is disingenuous, it's not real, and it's not honest, and you guys aren't being honest about the structure of how this country works.
By claiming the DEI isn't just, quote, lame diversity seminars or racial slogans, it was a deliberate program of discrimination, primarily, he said, against white men.
It should be reality.
But it's not.
But it isn't
But
reality.
it should be. Because of DEI, it's not.
But it's not.
Because of DEI.
Hello, everybody. Guys, we got Humpty Dumpty falling off the wall and onto Sid the Sloth. let's get into this segment and we'll talk about it.
Trump administration is escalating its war on DEI.
Are you a white male who's experienced discrimination at work based on your race or sex? You may have a claim to recover money under federal civil rights laws. The EOC is committed to identifying, attacking, and eliminating all forms of race and sex discrimination, including against white male applicants and employees.
That was the chair of the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, and J.D. Vance is co-signing that call by reposting her message, but took many steps further by claiming that DEI isn't just, quote, lame diversity seminars or racial slogans. It was a deliberate program of discrimination, primarily, he said, against white men. Carrie, I'm going to start with you. When you see this and you look at the statistics and you look at the numbers, how do you square these things?
You know, I think this has been a movement for some time. I think back to probably probably forever, but I'm going to say probably 2013, 2014. I was working with someone who said to me, it was a male colleague of mine, white male colleague of mine, and he was feeling very uncomfortable with the state of the world. He was suggesting that he wasn't able to get anything done because he was a white male and the world was essentially against him, and everything made it seem like, guess what, we have to hire minorities, we have to hire women, we have to hire marginalized people. And in his mind, everything was so politically correct. It was the HR of it all, the human resources of it all. And he was really upset about this. And I understood where he was coming from, but I couldn't relate because I lived in a world, and I'm speaking from my own experiences, where it felt like, well, about time. So what this is, in my opinion, is purely subjective. But in a world that we live in, where we are saying this country, and you talked about our founding fathers earlier, in air quotes, this country has always made it easier, in my opinion, from my experiences, to celebrate white men. And they've always been the bosses, and they've always from the top. You look at the people who have the money, the billionaires, you look at a list, they don't look like me or you, they look like white men. And so for this to be an issue, a movement, it is as if these white men are being marginalized, feels very disingenuous. And the fact that J.D. Vance is amplifying it is also disingenuous, in my opinion.
But two things can be true.
You know what? They can be true. They can.
Correct.
Three things can be true.
We can look back at the history of different institutions, private sector, public sector, and point and say this was overwhelmingly dominated by white men. But the statistics don't lie. But the statistics that came out recently about some hiring practices at some major institutions, specifically media, that article in Compact magazine that came out this week really does highlight some shocking numbers. If a news agency is touting their diversity and touting the fact that they're hiring, say, people of color, and 80% of the people are people of color, that is discriminatory in the same way that it was discriminatory
to hire only white men.
To hire only white men. And I think those things could be true. And to acknowledge that this is actually happening, I think is an important step, because it does show, perhaps, that we've moved somewhat beyond some sort of post-racial view of how things should be.
No, let me just throw in a couple statistics, because I went to look.
Like, white people out there, hear me and hear me well. And this is for everyone. Unemployment rate is double for black people than it is for white people. Double. We have to stop looking to the left and to the right as to who to blame. Look up. It's not a bird. It's not a plane. It's not Superman. It's the rich people again. While you're complaining about DI and everything is woke and an attack on white people, these rich people are laughing at you. They're laughing at all of us. The only way for our lives to get better is to look at those who are in fact making it more difficult for you. The ones with all the health. How can you possibly, guys, let's just look at this very simply. How can you possibly think that it's the poorest amongst you that are taking resources away from you? You got to be smarter than that. They're using bigotry to divide you, divide all of us from our wallets. And you have to see that. Sid the Sloth over there and Humpty Dumpty, these people, they're mercenaries for the wealthy. These are the people you need to be worrying about. The people stepping on you are your fellow wealthy white people and those who help them, the Republican pundits that tell you, pull yourself up by the bootstrap. What did Ben Shapiro, little squeaker, say the other day? Or not the other day, maybe a month or so ago. If you can't afford where you live, move. Then just move then. Like, listen, guys, they've already taken everything from black and brown people. Literally no more wealth to take from us. I mean, I'm going to show images here, and I know we're all the way at the bottom. The rich has only one more source of energy, one more source of food, and it's their own fellow white people, the middle and lower income white people, and they're coming for you.
This up because I was actually curious to see what happened, because there was a very large jump in black women's unemployment at 7%. White men's unemployment is about 3%. Black men's unemployment is at 7.5%. So when you look at all of this and you start talking about discrimination, yes, there are some examples, I think, that one of which you just pointed out, but you can't cherry pick when you look overarching at what's happening actually in the world, the world of work. Paul, how do you see this? What do you think this is about? Is this about messaging, or what is happening?
I think it's sometimes we fall into all or nothing. Did DEI go too far at times? Probably. Sometimes I think what happens, especially with political correctness, is the pendulum goes all the way over here.
Sure, overcorrect.
You just got to get back in the middle.
Sure.
Just get it in the middle. Did some white men get screwed over because of DEI? Probably. Did everybody, to the point where you do? That was like a shyster personal injury law firm commercial, wasn't it? Your steering wheel may be a ticking time bomb.
And if you feel like you've been treated poorly.
Right,
yeah.
exactly. So this isn't correcting a systemic inequity. It's treating discrimination as symmetrical, and it's not, because what you're doing is you're ignoring the imbalance of power that led to the civil rights legislation. And so, do I think that some white men have unfairly been treated as a result of DEI? Yeah, life's kind of sloppy that way.
But
it's not perfect,
but
I don't think you go so far as to tell everybody to start suing the government and start suing your work.
Wait, why
somewhere in the middle.
Wait, hold on. Why shouldn't a white person who has been discriminated, which you just admitted is real and has happened, why wouldn't a white person who has been discriminated and can prove a case, or at least can bring a case, why wouldn't they be able to sue for that?
Because I think the federal government, in that kind of announcement, is emboldening people that maybe don't have a claim but feel the government's telling me to do it, I'm going to go do it. That's why.
So maybe the bigger question is, why is the vice president putting this out there, telling people to sue? That's the question.
Oh, come on. It's the same reason why he wouldn't condemn Nick Fuentes and the people, the Young Republicans organization, calling people watermelon people and saying they want to put their opponents in gas chambers. That's why. We all know why Vance is doing that. J.D. Vance is doing that.
Discrimination is bad no matter who it is against. And do we all agree that discrimination on the basis of race or sex is bad? Can we all say yes?
Yeah, of
Carrie,
course.
can you say yes to that?
But
you don't. Well, the reason I asked that question.
But because there's a big question here. There is an entire community that feels discriminated against by the president.
white men.
The Somali community feels discriminated against by the president. He called them garbage.
Joe Biden called us garbage. White American men are being discriminated on the basis of their race and gender, and I would feel awful.
What numbers do you have that this is a systemic issue? This is a big
I don't care if it was a one-off issue. Nobody should be discriminated against because of their race or their sex. Second of all, the Compact article you mentioned, he does a very detailed job building upon years of other evidence. The other thing we have to discuss here, I am a female. I would feel awful if I got a role over a black male just because I'm a female, because I had a different, quota or target. It should always be based on meritocracy, on competency. I want whoever is most qualified for the job. And disparate incomes or outcomes, disparate outcomes is not indicative that it was the result of racism. So we have to stop pretending like that is the, if, blacks have a slightly higher unemployment rate or, slightly lower, that's okay.
Well, it's double. It's not slight.
My point is, it doesn't matter what it is.
Let's push pause on this and.
The conversation continues, but this is what I mean. People like Sidislav seek to divide you. When black and brown people try to do stuff about it, you guys call it woke and DEI, and it's anti-white. Like, guys, of course you're going to have anecdotal experiences that DEI went too far. I'm sure about that. But that's why we have data. Unemployment rate is double for what it is for black people. Black people and then Hispanics have 6 to 10 times, depending on the timeline, less wealth. 6 to 10 times less wealth. And guys,
All right, y'all. That was a fiery video. We only got 8 minutes left. And I think we got a caller. We still got a caller. Go ahead, caller.
Hi, Tula. Hello, guests. I'm so sorry. I couldn't really hear my phone that well, but when you guys were talking in the beginning, but I just really wanted to say I missed basically the middle part, but I did get to catch the beginning video on history or on Christmas and the history of it, and that was really what an interesting video. I mean, it really, I didn't know none of that. So that, I mean, some of it from the pagan thing, but not at all. So, you know, they really don't explain it as it should be, as with most history. But great show, Tula. I'm always supporting you, and it's nice seeing your guest. And I'm wishing everybody a Merry Christmas, no matter how we celebrate it. So, all right, you guys, happy holidays.
Oh,
bye.
All right, bye now. So, I mean, that last video was fired at me because the EEOC, the Civil Rights Division, was created in order to address racism that African Americans systemically felt while applying for a job. So under the Trump administration, what they did included white men, who is the majority of the jobs. They got 3% unemployment rate. Black men got 7.5.
2.7.
What? Oh, 2.7. I'm sorry.
The national average is 2.9. Theirs is 2.7, like actually 2.5 or something like that.
Right. So when I seen that they did that last week, so would you tell your white friend, hey man, just call and say that let's split the chicken? You know, you could call in and say you discriminate against. They gonna give you the money, and hey, we can split that bag.
I can't wait to see the first federal judge that rules in favor of that and see how that turns out.
Why you say that? Tell me.
Civil rights laws have been written, and they're very clear in what they state. The thing that we have to understand is that the EEOC does give out right to sue letters for people that discriminate, but then you still have to make your case in court. And unfortunately for them, you can't rewrite the civil rights laws, and they've already been interpreted by the Supreme Court. So that's number one. But number two, and I think this is more important, the whole thing with DEI. Three corporations control tens of trillions, not billions, tens of trillions of dollars. And those three companies not only control that, but also have majority of stakeholding in the Fortune 500 companies. I think I sent it to you, but you're talking about companies like BlackRock, the Vanguard Group, and State Street. Those companies right there control your DEI. And if you think for 1 second they're not hiring people that's going to make them money, and they're going to hire someone because they ain't qualified because they want to fill some quota, please, as they say on the street, trick no good.
Right.
They're all about making that money, and they're going to hire who they make, who's going to give them the best dollar bang for their dollar. But DEI is controlled by those three corporations. So when I hear people say like on the video, they're being disingenuous. Now they're being disingenuous, but they don't know the law. And not only that they don't know the law, they don't understand how case law works. Case law pretty much sets the tone for how they rule on the law in the future.
Right.
That's the reason why this Supreme Court is everyone's like shaking their heads, because they're actually going against case law. And everyone is saying like this is almost a panic because we don't know how things are going. You know, how they're going to rein this in if the next Democratic president comes in and takes these powers with these liberties like he's doing. Are you going to try to reverse course? And what's your excuse going to be? So this EOC statement that she made is very concerning because she's been appointed to that position by the commander in chief, but yet and still she's going against her own oath of which she took to uphold.
Well, I think it's interesting when you say that they try to take it to court and make the argument. And let's evaluate this. I got a concept that I come up with. I call it DEIW. Who's white male? Yeah, DEIWM, diversity, equity, inclusion, white male. And why am I saying that? If you look at the Trump administration, they only got one black man on his administration, Scott Turner.
That's it.
He was the head of the HUD. What did he have last time? One black man that was on his administration, and that was Ben Carson.
Head of HUD.
Right. So even if we look at the qualifications of Pete Hegseth, he fired, I think it was a 4-star general, Charles Brown. So don't come to me with that. Don't come to me with well, no, y'all do that. And if it wasn't true, then why did we even have to create the civil rights era? Why do we have to do that? Why they have to do what they call diversity, equity, and inclusion? By the way, let me tell you about that. Under DEI, white women benefited more than black people.
That's who it was created for.
Right, even affirmative action.
That's who it was created for.
Affirmative
The biggest benefactor of affirmative action, white women.
Right. So when you come crying to us, you should be thanking us. Because if we wouldn't have never did what we did, you wouldn't be where you are. Let me say why. Because when you're dealing with racism, misogyny is inherently tied to that. Again, let me say it again. When you're dealing with racism, misogyny is inherently tied to that. So white men would never have given you a job, period. So, you, like the white girl that was on Abby Phillips, she said white men are being discriminated against. She's doing that out of race loyalty.
Man.
Let me say it again. She's doing that out of race loyalty because she sounds foolish, because if she need a medical treatment that required her to get an abandonment of her fetus because she could die, Trump said you can't do that. So you sound crazy. All right, y'all. We got to wrap it up. The show was fired today.
Man, you got me fired up too.
But this show was fired up today. And, we ain't going to be here Thursday. Mr. Tidy going to be celebrating that day with his family day. So I'll see y'all next Monday. But I want to say thanks to my guest, Brother Frank Jackson, Pastor Frank Jackson. I knew he would be on point. And also, y'all know what I always say, listen to what people say, watch what they do. What they do is who they are. Your health is your wealth. Your health is your wealth. Adopt a senior citizen. Love you, Uncle Billy. Love you, Auntie Rosie. And I'm going to end up like this. Enjoy your time with your family. Power to the people. Power to the people. Power to the people. Stay woke. Thank you.
We got to fight the powers that be. As the rhythms designed to bounce with calcium that the rhymes designed to fill your mind.